And then we can video kids and ask them, how does push in help them? Put the children talking on the video, but you could still have teacher input by us writing our answer on that Post-it.
Honestly, what you just said, ask the kids.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're the one perspective that we're not asking for.
I guarantee you, if you ask them, do you prefer to stay in class or pull out? I think both would go back and forth. Some may love to leave. I think some could really answer how it helps them to stay in the classroom.
Mine prefer to stay in the room.
Yeah.
Why do they prefer to stay in the room?
I think it makes them feel more like a typical student instead of one that needs extra help.
The differences aren't so different anymore.
Yes, that's a better way to put it.
You know?
Right.
And all the students are benefiting from you helping and walking around the room.
It's always nice to have a second pair of eyes
100%.
and ears.
Yeah.
They are, but I feel like I can learn a lot from the push in because I can see how you handle when they get stuck. You know, when I can learn from you by observing you handling those kids, and then they feel successful because they didn't have to pull out, you know, to stay inside the lesson. And then I think that the resource teachers can benefit from seeing on grade level, like what, because sometimes you lose touch with what the on-level kids are doing and the expectations for those kids during testing. And like, I think the connections there, even for the adults, are really strong when you push in.
It helps them develop stronger skills in math and reading.
Yes.
Yeah. When they have.
And then that way, when you're not there, then I go, okay, I remember what she did to help this kid. I'm gonna try, you know, then we get strategies too with those babies.
The perspective of this is how you're teaching it to reinforce that
Yes.
at a later time. So I do like that thought.
Definitely.
And I think the kids also see how to help their friends and that their friends can be successful. I think it kind of eliminates the labels parents are so worried about. I struggle most with finding read aloud time for my kids because the kids that are on grade level, they don't need to hear me read it aloud. But inevitably, if I've got them at the back table reading to them, the rest of the class is listening, and so they're not getting that independent read time. That's probably what frustrates me the most, is not having a dedicated person to help them. And we've thought about, and I don't know if this is allowed, pre-recording lessons so that they could just listen to the video. I don't know if that's allowable. I've been told two different things on that. Because they could, if they needed to hear it again, they could just rewind it. And then that way the on-level kids are not hearing that. But yeah, there's concerns both ways with read aloud. The upper grades, they can be lengthy. And we wanted to record them beforehand and have it available to the kids, and they just went to our Google Classroom and clicked on the recording and followed along on their test, and they could wear headphones and it was silent. And then I could better monitor the class, because when I'm back there reading, you've got behavior, so it's not a clear read because you're constantly going back and forth. So I feel like if that could be a constant for read aloud, for even the EL babes, the ML students, because a lot of them get read aloud too.
I think that's the part where collaborating with your Tier 4 teachers and your Gen Ed teachers really plays a part, because when you can collaborate that, I think teachers feel more comfortable with accommodations. They're easier, per se, to apply those, but then modifying, it's a whole nother ballgame with planning and everything. So when they can collaborate to do the modification part, that would be easier on the Gen Ed teacher.
I agree.
And then when they're in there in the classroom at the same time, as she had said before, you're jumping back and forth with each other, you know, learning from each other for that part.
I think also the difficulty for me is understanding how to appropriately grade that and enter it into the grade book with their peers. I know there's indicators where it says modify and you can write, but the report card's a report card, it's numbers, and it doesn't reflect where they are, because if you look at the report card, it looks like they're doing 4th grade work. And like you said, they might be doing 1st grade work. It's hard for me when I'll have 4 or 5 it's EL or ML students, and then some resource students and some CDC students, juggling all of that and not understanding the appropriate work to give them. I agree that collaborating with your team or the tier 4 is the best, but that collaboration isn't always there, honestly. So I would love to have a resource where I could know this is appropriate. Because I'm like, okay, they can do this, but is this what I'm supposed to be doing? It's very hard for us.
I also think you have to think of, in your IEPs with the parents, are they clear at the exact level where their child is? Because I know sometimes, you start off positive and you say, Sally is doing a great job in math class, but she may be doing a great job on second grade math
Mm-hmm.
in my 6th grade classroom. And so I think sometimes we have to make sure to clarify that, maybe show examples to the parents. This is a Gen Ed Tier 1 6th grade problem, but Sally is working on this fraction problem, which is 2nd grade, or making sure they're really clear so that when they do see that report card, they still understand it's been modified. They're still working on that same skill or standard, but it's not necessarily standard, but it's been modified for that child.
Yes.
Okay, so typically I will just have that conversation for you so that you don't have to do that, because that's a hard conversation, right?
Right.
So if you don't have me, then what?
Yeah. So if that hasn't been done, and I have a student in my 6th grade classroom, and that hasn't been done, hasn't been followed and explained to parents well, and if I do that, or someone, in the IEP does it that year, that can be an even harder conversation because the parents haven't been explained clearly before. So I just think that's a critical part in showing those examples, or showing, if it's reading, showing a book that's on a level 2nd grade and showing a book on a 6th grade level to truly explain the differences to parents. Because when it hasn't been done before, and say they get their grades from 5th grade, well, my child was making all A's on everything, and then they come to me and I'm like, well, they can't do this work, or they can, but with scaffolding or modifications. So trying to just show that difference, I think, is really difficult if it hasn't been followed by a manager and done that way. So that's super important.